remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
Aye, aye, Admiral Butthead.
So don't mess with me.
I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
I pray for the president all the time.
Ugh, back to the lock with you, Nessie.
I've now been in 57 states.
He's what we designate as the crummy moronic type.
We didn't crawl out from under no rocks. We didn't have no tails. We didn't come from monkeys. You atheistic pinko meathead.
Donald Trump no longer has the capacity to break my heart.
I'm not pissed. You've seen me pissed. This is way, way beyond pissed.
Now it's a party!
Don't try to be funny, will you, meathead?
Welcome, brother.
Welcome.
How are you today?
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Welcome, brother, to the Brotherhood of Liberty, right?
Yes, we are doing a fantastic show tonight. We have a number of things to go over. First on the list we have updates. We do have some updates that we're going to be working on. Then we're going to be talking about where we go from here. What is it that you called it?
A little Latin. Quo vadis. Quo vadis, America. A little lingo from the original.
Okay, and so then after that we have we're going to dive into Marxism and the editor's corner, which is packed with some big lies.
If we have the time.
If we have time. By the way, still looking forward to the Call of Duty winner, KR, who, from the Kenosha. I apologize for saying the city's name wrong last week. I was calling it Kennesaw, but
all right, you're completely off script again. It took you 2 seconds. So from now on, I'm just going to say Quo vadis. Quo vadis.
Quo vadis.
Quo vadis.
So,
where are you going?
So we have tonight's topics. I want to start off with, we figured out, brother, why we are voting for Trump. I mean, the left has finally figured out why we are voting for Trump, and it's not just because we're racist, it's also because we're poor and we're nobodies, and so we're going to play a couple minutes of this.
I just want to read a portion of your book because I think that it also speaks to something that you hear Democrats say a lot, which is why do working class white people vote for leaders or politicians, particularly Donald Trump, who say that they're going to take away some of the very things and protections and safety net that these voters need, like the Affordable Care Act, like environmental regulations. And so your book addresses it. It says what they had not considered was that people voting this way were in fact voting their interests, maintaining the caste system as it has always been was in their interest. And some were willing to accept short-term discomfort, forgo health insurance, risk contamination of the water and air, and even die to protect their long-term interest in the hierarchy as they had known it. That's just really helpful insight.
Well, when you look at a society on the basis of inherited hierarchy, something that none of us created, none of us alive created the world that the colonists devised over time, laws that were created, you realize that you will then gain an investment in their position in a hierarchy that we don't even talk about. I mean, I talk about this as in some ways, it's like if it's an old house and you don't see the studs and the joists and the beams that hold the house up, and yet they are there to keep the structure in place. So it's almost an invisible structure that we've inherited. We're not necessarily aware of it. We don't have a name for it. And yet when you have an investment in that hierarchy, and especially if you have if you have less to rely on, to make sure that to be secure, less education, less in the way of job security, you might find that you would be even more reliant on the what I would call inherited ranking that comes from a caste system such as ours. And so the less that you have to rely on in other ways to feel better and more secure, the more you will rely on inherited ranking which is what I'm calling a caste system.
Oh my gosh, your book is just so.
So, brother, without
God, your
diving,
book is just so great. What she said, you cut her off, James.
you really want to hear what she has to say?
No.
Listen,
Oh my gosh,
Allison Camerata has so slipped so far, but here I'll let you hear.
Oh my God! Oh my gosh!
It's so enlightening. Go ahead,
oh wow!
These people are so much smarter than part of your story you tell here, right, is a deliberate effort to maintain that caste system, and I wonder if you see elements of that in.
John, when did we become India?
James, first of all, it is a caste system. They're completely right. What about the caste system right here in Ballistic Patriot?
The cat? You mean the fact that I only have one? I don't even have a hat, and you got two.
Oh, well, wait a minute. How many Hawaiian shirts do you have?
I have enough.
How many? You have 8. You have 8. I only have one. I have to wear the same one every day. You got one for every week. There's a caste system here.
Well, I think that though, John, the caste system they're probably talking about is the one that the Democrats created in every major city across the country, when they've created policies that are meant to keep the minorities in check, such as education policies, such as denying them access to the choice schools, denying them access to voucher systems, and forcing them into factories of educational systems against the better judgment of these parents who, in the state of New Jersey, there's 30,000 kids on a waiting list for the charter schools. There's, I think, over 50,000 kids in New Jersey that are in charter schools currently, and there's still, I think, 1.4 million kids who are within the school district. Some of them are very good districts, but by and large, the what they call the Abbott districts are being screwed over, or they're the ones who are being allowing this system to continue of oppression, this caste system that Allison Camerata and her two flunkies there are complaining about. I don't know if you remember Allison. She was on Fox for a while, but then she took the blue pill and went to CNN. Probably more money. So that's one bit of updates, John.
Wait, James.
Did you want to weigh in?
I just want to weigh in just a little bit. These people who claim to be so much smarter than us, I'm always amazed at how stupid they are.
Yeah.
Like for the environment, for example, it's like, a little known fact, right, is that today our CO2 output is the same as it was in 1985. So that with like literally 1/3 more population, our CO2 is reduced because of things like fracking, and the explosion in natural gas, and the explosion in the ability to tap the old Texas wells and the old wells in Oklahoma, so that we're energy independent now, and how somehow that doesn't translate into lower money for lower prices for us for oil, for heating oil, to keep our houses warm, to drive, and that's not one of the things that we're voting for, because good old Joe Biden and good old Kamala Harris want to take that away. But they're so much smarter than us.
Well, I mean, John, you mentioned energy independence. Right now, every part of the country has energy independence except for California, which has been having to deal with rolling blackouts because their infrastructure is so torn down, and they're not building any new energy plants, and they're not going to, because the only energy plants they'll produce are the windmills that they don't want to put up in their beautiful San Francisco Bay, and the giant nuclear factory plants that they don't want to have because they're all afraid of Fukushima and Chernobyl. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than that, John. It's just the entire problem with the energy system is part of that caste system that they were describing. Again, we see Democrats projecting what they're doing on the Republican Party. They're projecting that we want to keep the caste system when they're really the ones who want to keep government caste, the system under their control. They don't want independent independent-minded people. They want to make sure that they have us controlled, and they can do that with their caste system, like they've been doing in the cities for almost 60 damn years, brother. So that's that update. I wanted to talk about China. I have three things from China, and I have only a couple minutes, so I just want to run through them first. As you know, China has been, with the China virus that we have coming from there. It's just one phase of us talking about it. There's the thing that they talk about, the big noise that they talked about, the Democrats talked about during the RNC, is about how the United States has the most infected people in the entire ratio of the entire world, and we've had the most deaths. But what they all seem to ignore is the blatant, outright lying that China has done over in with the number of deaths they had just in two of the funeral homes in Wuhan. Just 2 of the 8, they've had over 5,000 in each. People come and pick up urns over in the last couple months from their dead. Just for over 5,000 they've had shipped in. Just that's what they know about, and that's all from the Wuhan period of when it was all locked down and they were in the middle of their epidemic. So that's just 2 of an 8. So they reported at the time that there was no more than 2,500 dead from the China virus in Wuhan at the time. Only 25, and I'm sorry, did I say 500? I meant 5,000. 5,000 have just from one of those.
James, are you in a basement?
Why?
Joe Biden and problem with numbers there.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Well, I get passionate about it. Also, we've talked about China being, how to break China and how to defeat it. There's a rising resistance movement in Inner Mongolia over of all things, the Chinese government requiring the Mongolian language not to be taught in school, and that the Chinese state language to be taught in school, not the Mongolian line. And remember, that's also the birthplace, John, of Inner Mongolia is the birthplace of what famous conqueror?
Kang the Conqueror.
Khan, yeah. Genghis Khan. All right.
Oh, I met Kang from the. Also, Buck Rogers, right? Wasn't that originally the book? The Mongolian. That's where the aliens land, right, and take over. It's a long time ago.
Maybe. But then, so there's a rising movement against that in China, in the central China. There's also, I don't know if you're aware of it, there's been a number of conflicts, pushing and shoving match on the Indian-Chinese border between the two powers, and they've been going back and forth. And China is definitely pushing its muscle around there. They killed 20 special forces Indian guys there, and I think that might flare up to something a little bit more at some point. We have China has been influencing U.S. campuses, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Trump administration has been driving force about kicking these Chinese schools, these indoctrination centers within our country out, and also getting the Chinese influence on our U.S. campuses out as well. Right here in New Jersey, TCNJ had some kind of agreement with China, mainland China, and that's caused the FBI to become very concerned. And there's been a number of conflict over that around the country with other institutions. The problem with the local ones, maybe it was Rutgers, but Rutgers as well. So there's a number of concerns over what kind of influence the intellectual property that they're stealing and using back home. And most recently, there's President Trump's plan, which is to have 1 million manufacturing jobs brought back to the United States through his idea of having 100% of almost like national emergency medicines and stuff like that to be bankrolled by, for you to get tax breaks on building the factories. So in other words, you get 100% tax break on building a factory in the United States if you do that. So he's looking to have 1 million jobs, manufacturing jobs, come back to America. Biden wants to do 2 million, and he's in essence, he's saying government's going to pay for all the product and it's going to front the money. He's spending like $400 billion or some ridiculous amount to do it. So really not clear.
He doesn't have a plan, James.
Well, it's not his. First of all, it's not his plan, and his plan isn't meant to be any real thing. He's more married to the Green New Deal, which By the way, if you do that, you can't have manufacturing because manufacturing is dirty. Manufacturing is going to hurt the environment. Thus, it's better to ship it someplace where they don't, you don't have to worry about the local environment.
James,
and lastly, John,
what?
Yeah. Well, lastly, the Chinese Air Force is becoming a threat to the world. They've been building. They have new attack drones, fifth generation stealth fighters, and the People's Liberation Army has a total of 2,500 aircraft, making it the third largest in the world, according to the Pentagon's 2020 China military power. And there's also why the United States wants to up its number of squadrons to 386. But it's we're still flying, John. We're still flying the 1980s plane, the F-15, and it's a great foundation, but it's from the 80s, and we're fighting now stealth fighters. We need to start upping our game and coming up with the next. We need the sixth and seventh generation of fighter craft to really dominate the skies in order to keep the Chinese boxed up. So that's what we should be doing. Any idiot out there that tells you we need to be friends and shake hands with China, they're the ones who want to be bought out by the Chinese. So that's something to keep in mind as we go forward, brother. That's all the updates I have. And unless you want to discuss it a little bit more, we can move on.
Just real quick, do you know how many Navy ships that they have? I just saw this released.
No, I don't.
350, and we have 300. Bad news. So thanks to the idiot Bushes, the idiot Obamas, the moron Obamas, the dumbest president we ever had, the idiot Clintons, both Bushes, all they did was build up a pier that we're going to have a world war with because they're not going to stop. So thanks a lot, jackasses.
The Navy is what we're going to need to stop China because it's
and Army and Marines and
the Navy is going to be the spear point to do the blockade that we had talked about, and we'll save that for another show. But the idea of China,
on that, yeah, we
need to have at least a 500 ship Navy, and it needs to be a lot more submarines and a lot more of interdiction craft. We need a lot more interdiction craft as well as something that escort craft for the carriers. We do, John. We do outnumber them in carriers. We in fact outnumber the entire.
But the carriers
world.
Might be obsolete.
They might be, but
they're probably obsolete.
They're possibly obsolete. There's other ways that they're great for projection of power close in when you need it.
Until the biggest
threat with the Chinese that I didn't mention was that they've been able to convert some of their fighter jets into tankers or their bombers into tankers, so that they can fuel them to go beyond and have lingering time over Taiwan, which is not what we want. And which is why the U.S. carrier would be beneficial because we could park 3 U.S. carriers off a certain distance from Taiwan and have air sorties against them and to interdict their craft and shoot them down over Taiwan, which is where we want to shoot them down because by shooting them down closer in, we're wiping them out. We're hurting them. We're hurting them more. Is that your phone, John? Is that my phone?
No, I'm sorry. It's Brother Joseph.
You should get on here with us.
It's the Liberty Brother of Joseph.
Yeah,
he's going to work early today.
Okay. All right. So now we go on to where do we go from here, brother? Where do we go from here?
You mean like Quo Vadis?
Quo Vadis, yeah.
You ever learn any Latin at all?
No.
Quo Vadis. Giacomo, Quo Vadis. Where are we going? All right.
Go ahead, brother. Lead us in.
Quo Vadis. Quo Vadis. Now, most of this is from the great Bishop Sheen. I can't do it justice. The great Bishop Sheen is amazing. He's a saint. I think he's blessed right now, but they're going to make him a saint anytime soon. He was a great Catholic bishop who had a TV show in the 1950s. I can't recommend it more to watch this show, to watch him. So Quo Vadis America. It's one of his episodes, and it comes, of course, from Quo Vadis Dominus, which is St. Peter was coming from Rome, running from persecution, and we know from one of his letters he sees a image of our blessed Lord, and St. Peter says to our blessed Lord, he goes, Quo Vadis Dominus, where are you going? And our blessed Lord said, back to Rome. And then, poor St. Peter hung his head and turned back and went back to Rome to be persecuted, of course, and have his head cut off. So maybe he shouldn't listen to Jesus on that one. But he became the first pope, and then established one of the pillars of Western civilization in the Catholic Church, which is probably the second greatest organization to do good in the entire world next to the United States military. But Quo Vadis, Dominus Quo Vadis America, and so Bishop Sheen lays out Quo Vadis America, and he lays out the difference between the American Revolution and the French Revolution and the riots in the streets back then. And he did it 60 years ago. It's absolutely amazing. I used to say he's the American Chesterton, and that he updates Christianity to the new world. But then I think I got it backwards. I think Chesterton's the British version, the knockoff version of Bishop Sheen, because he literally updates Christianity, Catholicism to America. So anyway, Quo Vadis, where are we going? Where are we going with this? Well, they like to say this is revolution. America is built on revolution. It's not. We have two different versions of revolution. You have the American version, and then you have the French version. And in the American version, you have built on Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson built the American Revolution on two principles: the dignity of the individual, and that our rights came from God. We're not a democracy. Where two people, where if you have three people, two people decide they want to rape the third one. Well, they vote 2-1. You have a democracy. They rape the third person. No, we don't have an old Roman republic where you have the patricians and the plebes. And if the patricians, they want to decide that they want to turn everybody into slaves, they turn everybody into slaves like they did. And then you have the fall of the Roman Empire, much what the Democrats want to do today, the aristocrats, and turn us plebes into slaves. So we don't have a republic. What we have is a constitutional republic. And in the founding documents, it says, our rights, like Joe Biden says, it'd be a great time to pull up that quote, all that stuff, the creator and all that stuff. Our rights come from the Creator, and nobody can take them away. Not a democracy, not other people, not a majority. Nobody can take your rights away. And so we have this dignity in the individual and the rights of God. Now, interestingly enough, Jefferson, when he was over in France, he might have ran into the people, the progenitors of the French Revolution, particularly in Saint Just, as he was, he used the right hand man, the henchman of Robespierre and the Terror. Now, the French Revolution is based on two other concepts. The French Revolution is based on terror, out and out terror, the political use of terror, and of course the rejection of God. Now, Robespierre went back and forth on this, but Saint Just, he was the spirit, the angel of death, as they called him in the French. And here are a couple of his quotes: "A nation generates itself only upon heaps of corpses, and the vessel of revolution can arrive in port only on a torrent of blood." Now, this is the terror. They inspire the terror. They unleash the terror. They unleash the mob, which is what we're seeing today. The mob. So there's the American version of revolution, and then there's the French commie scumbag version of revolution from the European version, and it's based on the terror and the rejection of God. Now, interesting enough, it used to be, we had a sort of version of this, the KKK. The Democratic Party had the KKK, was the militarized wing of the KKK, and it used the KKK, much like the Democratic Party is using Antifa and Black Lives Matter today. Now you notice that the level of violence escalates and de-escalates. Now, how is that? Well, and looking at it sociologically, the number of psychopaths and sociopaths in a particular given population is always about the same. It's just the same percentage of that population. So why does the violence from the KKK go up and down? Why is the violence of it's an interesting question. Why is the violence of Antifa and Black Lives Matters, now that they're a new introduction, go up and down? Well, James, we're old enough to remember the Tea Party. And what now that's an honest protest. I remember going through their protesters, and they would clean up after themselves, and they're all great Americans out there, and going, oh, these poor benighted fools, they have no idea what that scum Paul Ryan and company are going to do to them. And sure enough, they did, right? Then I remember a little bit after that, the poor Occupy Wall Street. And I would have to walk through them to get to the CJC, the Criminal Justice Building in the center of Philadelphia, and there they out there and camp right in front of that idiot do nothing Mayor Nutter, another window. I think what a great thing that he has to see them every day, and they're smelling the patchouli. I'm thinking, oh, isn't it great these kids have something to do in there, and they're out there protesting. No, those were protests. Unfortunately, though, that protest actually got infiltrated by the Antifa, which was a German, of course, fake anti-fascist organization. They're just communists, and they're just fake. They have to invent the notion of fascist to fight against it. And of course, that gives them the authority then to punch them in the face, to go after them. And literally, the definition of fascism is anything that that anybody who disagrees with them. So Republicans, even though we're the exact opposite of fascism, even though we're nothing like fascism, then we become fascists just because we vote for Trump. Literally, that's how stupid their ideology is. But it's an out-and-out communist front from Germany that came over to America, infiltrated Occupy Wall Street, and is now the militarized wing of the Democratic Party, just like good old BLM, which is, of course, bigots love Marxism. So now, if you remember our good old Bishop Sheen, he would tell you that any of these fake revolutions, I mean these real revolutions, these mob revolutions from France, there's three types in that. There's the leaders. You can hit me with the leader right now.
Yes, I have.
Go ahead, hit me with the leader.
Here's a quote, a short video from one of the founders of not this guy, the lady he's talking to. From the founders of Black Lives Matter.
Is concerned that there's a lack of perhaps ideological direction in Black Lives Matter that would allow it to be and as he said, in comparison to Occupy Wall Street. As you are advanced in your own organization, as you all are headed to Cleveland to participate in this Black Lives movement conference, how do you respond to that particular critique? Again, a loving critique from an elder of the struggle that some others share, that I've even shared as well, to be frank, as a concern about, in part because of the co-optation and the appropriation, that a more clear ideological structuring might be of some value here. But how do you respond to those kinds of, again, loving criticism?
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
Trained Marxists, brother.
There you go.
Super...
pretty hard to beat that.
Ideological theories.
He was
so you have right there from the young lady's mouth, they are in fact trained Marxist. And if you actually look at the entire, I have a quote from one of the articles that I read. Though it is ostensibly a group dedicated primarily to fighting and ending racism and police brutality in the United States, Black Lives Matter itself deals heavily in the language of rhetoric steeped in left-wing ideology. The group states on its website that it is dedicated to issues concerning racial injustice, police brutality, criminal justice reform, Black immigration, economic injustice, and human rights, environmental injustice, access to birth, health care, access to quality education, voting rights, and suppression of voting rights. So, John, I mentioned all that because that is the exact opposite of what Marxism is itself an ideology that's meant to destroy the system and meant to recreate it so the government controls everything. So, I mean, let's talk about this. You were talking about it.
Wait. Are we doing Marxist now? We're going to hold off on Marxist. Why don't we hold off on Marxist? Because I got more.
We can hold off on Marxist, but I just want to make that point. You brought it up. Marxism is alive and well in our country, and it's a driving force behind this BLM movement and Antifa. They're working together, as you've been mentioning, in cahoots. And we need to. This is part of the addressing this and pushing back against what the left wing ideology, because it's married itself to the left wing ideology. It's time for us to call them out for what they've been doing and where their basis of their system is, which is to the entire destruction of freedom-loving countries for government-run mills of controlling and destroying people's lives. So go forward, brother. Your turn.
Right. So as Bishop Sheen would tell us, that from this organization, you're going to have the leaders, you're going to have the hangmen, and you're going to have the wastrels. The people are just hanging on for the loot, the looters. We've already seen this already work out, right? So I mean, he did this 60 years ago. It's absolutely amazing. Well, let's look back at history in the past. Now, the thing is, the mechanism that lets them off, that like turns them on and off, is the permission slip from leadership. Okay, so like the old KK was founded by Nathan Bedford Forrest, turned on, and the psychopaths and sociopaths, then the mobs killed all these people, right? Then they got turned off by Nathan Bedford Forrest. He came out with it and said in his speech, "Stop doing it," right? Just like it got turned on again with that idiot Wilson, the second dumbest president we ever had, the professor, just like Obama, that it would get turned off by people like William Jennings Bryan, who kicked him off the presidential podium when in the Democratic Party, kicked him off. Then you get it turned off, right? So literally, the psychopaths and the sociopaths get a permission slip from leadership, just like we've seen in the past 3 months from Maxine Waters saying that, oh, you got to get in their face, you can't let them eat. And you see the attacks on Rochester, New York, in Washington D.C. to good old Nadler, who claims Antifa was made up, to good old to the entire Democratic Party, which didn't mention the riots, the looting once in an entire week of their national convention, to good old Biden, good old Kamala Harris saying it's a movement, right? Although she's a cop and she's really just going to co-opt it and then use that movement. And then good old Biden himself, who hasn't mentioned it at all until, of course, now it's been showing up in some polling. So the Nancy, and of course Nancy Pelosi, the evil hag herself, giving the complete permission slip for this nonsense. It's the Democratic Party who gave this nonsense, and every time, that's why when they burned down the church across from the White House, they were so hot to make it the calculated deception about him, Trump using the military, the calculated deception about people that were allegedly protesting, and not the fact that, hey, they're burning down a church and rioting, and Donald Trump is the only one in the country standing up for law enforcement against the rioters, the looters. And this is the Democratic Party has given permission slip to Antifa to kill, to murder, to riot, to loot, to BLM, to kill, to murder, to riot, and loot, just like in the just like they did to the KKK. The BLM and the Antifa are the new KKK for the Democratic Party. They're the new militarized wing of the Democratic Party for the political violence of spreading terror. Now they've unleashed the mob to again, you have no rights. Remember your French Revolution. The only rights they say come from government, and they come from a pile of blood. And it's the terror. They use the terror. That is not our way. Now, way back when we used to talk about
John, just to throw in there, they also did it in connection to the stuff going on with COVID. They also did it as measures of safety. So all the rules that they came up with for the reign of terror were measures from the Committee of Safety, right? Remember that's what the circle is. They use that as the cover. Oh, this is for your own safety. This is to keep everybody safe. We have to kill all these people because it'll keep the rest of us safe. Go on.
Yeah, and just like in the French Revolution, they had the Committee of Public Safety, right? And then those are the people that were guillotining everybody, including Robespierre and Saint-Just. Eventually, they got there. Eventually, the mob eats itself. that's why we used to cite a particular. She's
all
an African,
revolutions do, brother. All revolutions except
for
for
our,
ours.
and that's where I'm going. Where Quo Vadis, Giacomo. That's where I'm going right now. We used to talk about a particular African American conservative. She's a brilliant woman, super smart, Star Parker, and she had the best line. It's not our line, best line ever. It's either America will be biblical and free, or atheist and statist. It is literally the same thing that Bishop Sheen was talking about, the same thing that we're talking about, the same thing that Star Parker was talking about. Our revolution, America, what makes America different is its biblical base and freedom, right? The individual rights and the rights come from God, and God, the worship of God, and versus the what everything else in the world is. The French model is just it's just the most the easiest to point to. Of course, it goes on to all the rest. It's actually the evil of human nature. It's the basis of terror and piles of corpses, blood, terror and blood. And so we're either biblical and free or atheist and statist, and that's the Quo Vadis. So where are we going, America? Quo Vadis, Giacomo. Let's go back.
We're going biblical and free, John. Biblical and free. That's what's going to happen in 60 days when President Trump wins re-election, God willing.
And issues in another great 4 years.
4 years, but it's only 4 years. I keep on reminding everybody, it's only 4 years, and in reality, what we need to control is Congress. We need to control both houses. And I've said this, one of the things that I don't know if you're aware of, John, but a couple of articles have been popping up on our website at ballisticpatriot.com, where we've been talking about what's been going on with our country. First of all, How to Win in November came out, and we talked about, the idea of how having to crush the Democrats, but not, what President Trump needs to do is the way he did the way the National Republican Committee did the RNC, the convention. They need to have mini conventions around the entire country, and with the stars of those mini conventions being from that area. So with a couple of national stars to match. So you might have a Crenshaw head up something in Texas, or you might have a DeSantis had something up in Florida. And so maybe it's regional, maybe it's the Southeast, maybe it's the Central, maybe it's the South Dakota governor, whose name I can't remember. She have her headed up in that part of the country. This is what they need to do in order to win. See, because President Trump has been very limited by his inability to have these giant rallies. And remember, John, I remember those rallies being his 38 special, the one right in the middle of the night. He got in that last one right there at the end in Virginia. He flew down the night before while Hillary was taking a nap. And I mean, that's the kind of energy that he had. He was in 3 states in one day, and he did a rally in each 3 states, in gangbusters rally. That's to say he can't do that this time because of the COVID. So what does he have to do? He has to go around into these regions and have them, impromptu, the way that was done. The production was so well orchestrated and so well done and so much better than what the Democrats could put together. There was no, king, queen, mermaid like the Democrats had. There was good, honest, ordinary people like you and me, people who were, willing to speak their mind, people who would be, out there telling about why they were voting for Trump, why they're supporting. That's what President Trump, and in order to win the entire thing, and not just the presidency, it's also the entire Congress. We have to win the Congress as well. We can't just win the presidency. We have to win Congress as well. And the way you're going to do that is by getting the president to have giant coattails. And that's the case that we make in our article on How to Win in November, which we put out earlier this week. And John, I'm telling you, there's a lot of good information out there about this. That's how we're going to win. And I know that's maybe right here in the middle of our show, but it's important to note that we need to do something to equal what President Trump did in his rallies. And the best way to do that is to have those conventions, those mini conventions around the entire country. Listen, John, would you tune into it? Did you? Because I know you tune into every rally. I know you tune into every rally that you could, and so did I. And the point is, if you do those mini conventions, those are the same thing. He'll blow the doors off of regular media. He'll blow the mainstream media. He'll blow the doors off their Nielsen ratings. He'll crush them like he always does, because we want to hear from the people who are supporting President Trump. That's what we want to hear. That's what's going to win the day, John. So that's my take. Any ideas?
Well, maybe if he does it outside. I saw if he can do it at hangars, because they're going to try and crush him with the COVID, which kind of makes you wonder.
He can do both, John. There's no reason why he can't do both.
Well, how do you do it? You can't do it if you do it inside. You're going to be spreading the super spreader.
No, I mean the convention, the way he did the convention, where you would have people. They had the one podium. Everyone came up, spoke at the podium, and then got and left. And in between, they had the little vignettes of President Trump talking to, doing a immigration rally or an immigration, swearing in. And then he would, he'd get to talk with some other supporters and another one. This is what, he does that they did so key. They really hit on who President Trump is, the man, not the Twitter guy, but the guy who cares about Americans, cares about people who want to be Americans, and cares about trying to do the best thing for everybody, whether they're Republican or Democrat. That's the guy they need to showcase, because when they do that, what's Biden going to do? Biden's going to crap his pants. That's what it's going to come down to, because he can't fight against that. They can't get him to be that lucid that often. And, John, let's be honest, the man has a problem. I've talked to people who are suffering today with the same diseases that he is, and they say there's no way that he could be, he's capable of being president. Plain and simple.
That's our editor's corner, though. Are you ready for that, or you want to do?
Let's do the editor's corner, because
what do you want to do, Marx?
No, let's. We're at 42, so let's do the editor's corner. We can save Marx. John, Marxism isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We're going to end up having to crush it after we defeat the Chinese. We're going to have to crush it in another country too, because these Marxists keep on running to the next place where they want to destroy things. So we just got to fight them everywhere.
All right, today's editor's corner is from ABC reporter Jonathan Karl. Now, Jonathan Karl, he's a knockoff Acosta. He's the little woman next to Acosta. If you see him in there, oh, he's so pathetic. But he came up with a new article that says that intelligent sources have told him that questioning Biden's mental health is Russian propaganda.
Oh, my God, I'm a Russian?
Apparently. Now, James, now, what are the implications of this? Now, Rush Limbaugh made the point that, well, wait a minute. How did the Putin and the Russians get Biden to play along with this? Because obviously he's been, faking the exhibiting, problems of dementia. So what I believe that we have to do now.
Does the act of doing the dementia, does that include Corn Pop and the hairy legs and the cockroaches comments? Does that include that?
No, that's a different problem he has.
Okay.
That's a different problem.
Because I will quote Paul Ryan one of the only times and say there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't come out of his mouth the right way.
Well, I don't know if that's his problem. I think, again, Paul Ryan is evil no matter what. And and he's just trying to cover up for it. That came out the right way. That's the problem. Corn Pop, black people are cockroaches to him. Corn Pop is what he thinks black people are. And people touching his legs, and touching people, that's all Joe Biden.
That's all his mainstream.
That's his regular stuff without the problems with dementia. So interesting enough, it goes. Interesting enough about that. You could look at it as this is just a calculated distraction from what actually the news that did come out this week. Apparently, the great guys, the great guy, I'm blanking on his name, Judicial Watch had asked for a FIA, for a Freedom of Information Act, for the Secret Service for the records on Joe Biden, because apparently he was fondling the wives of the individual Secret Service agents, and he would appear nude in front of the female agents, and all these records apparently disappeared. That news came out this week, which is,
Really?
you know, of course, but see, because the calculated distraction of this, of, you know, that the Russian, the intelligences, the intelligence sources say there's that questioning his mental health is propaganda, and the other one too, the Atlantic, the super owner of the Atlantic told his, and they could sue us if they want. I would love to get the emails on this. Told his fake magazine, The Atlantic, to come up with a complete lie, saying that Trump said he that if you're, whether he didn't go to the World War One veterans cemetery because they're losers. All right, now Trump is literally the guy, as you pointed out, the guy who fixed the VA, who rebuilt the U.S. military,
and is still fixing it, because it's such a bad system that 4 years has not been enough to fix all the problems with it. I can tell you that there's veterans, even, you know, during the COVID crisis, who are having trouble getting their stuff because of the wacky rules that they have in place for some of this stuff. But go on, brother.
So it does beg the question for this, how did the Russians get Joe Biden to play along with having Alzheimer's? How did they get him to do that? Well, our recommendation is to President Trump, since it's okay to do, because Obama did it and he's not in jail, although he should be. What President Trump has to do now is he has to use the FISA courts, and I'm sure all those creep judges are going to be okay with this, to spy on the Biden campaign and the Harris campaign, just to make sure there aren't any Russian connections, Russia,
Right.
to see if there's to use all the secret spying devices, you know, and the servers, that they have the miles and miles of servers, you know, where they keep all your phone records and everything you've ever said that gets transmitted by electronics, every email you ever made, and go through it with a troll to find the comments to the Russians. So I guess President Trump now is completely justified, because this is the new standard. It's the Obama standard.
And John, one of the lies that's been perpetuated by this about him saying those comments have been repudiated by General Kelly, the chief of staff at the time, and no friend of the administration, John Bolton, have both come out and said that Trump never said what the Atlantic is saying, despite their independent sources. And talk about getting veteran support. In an open letter, signed by 674 veterans, the writers said they are speaking out after baseless media attacks against President Trump from anonymous sources, referring to a piece published in the Atlantic. So, I mean, there's clear evidence that, A, no one buys the BS that the Atlantic is spewing. What the Atlantic is spewing is BS. And in one of the only times in history that I can recall, the other mainstream media has flocked to Fox News because it's one of the so-called independent, because somebody found somebody at Fox News to agree to these anonymous sources. So it's just smoke and mirrors. I apologize. Continue, brother.
No, James. So this is what we're going to see. We're going to see a repeat cycle of this for the next 60 days. It's the same crap. Now, of course, it's completely made up, and it's targeted because, of course, of the John McCain incident, where just to be clear, John McCain, scumbag, who sold out.
Here's one for you too, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Two cowboys, two cowbells, one for you, and one for me to do it on
Right.
John Idiot McCain.
Right. Right. So just so to be clear, just so we don't forget his
Self-serving.
history. Right. The admiral, the son of an admiral who got into Annapolis and barely graduated from that, all because of who his father was, and then who there is credible evidence of while he was over as got himself shot out of the sky, got himself caught, and then spent 5 years in a prison war camp. There's credible evidence turning in his fellow his fellow service people for any little infraction because he was one of their stooges, which has all been classified now. We can't get a hold of. Also, but here's the thing: why he'll always be known as a creep, not just because he campaigned on repealing Obamacare, and his vote was the last vote when he came in there and he put his thumbs down, and he completely as a complete lack of honor, a complete cowardice move like that, because he was beyond the ability of the people to withdraw to get him out. Not only that, no, the real reason why he was such a scumbag is because that jerk, when he was going to run for president, the Vietnamese had a bunch of MIAs and a bunch of Americans probably still alive, but we don't know. He had that. He whitewashed that they were all dead, and he whitewashed what happened to them. And still today, there are American families of servicemen and women who do not know what happened to their beloved child, to their beloved hero, because of the Vietnamese communist was given a complete whitewash because that ass wanted to run for president and he wanted to look like the great savior. So now, some of us have been paying attention to this, and some of us, whenever we see that black flag that goes up there for MIAs, still remember that. And every day we look up at that flag and remember good old jerk John McCain, who had it all classified. And to this day, you can't find out what happened to any of that. But that jerk, right, badmouth back in history, badmouth us, the people that were the Trump supporters, the people who wind up voting for Trump, and then Trump said, well, he just gave an off comment. I never liked that guy. That guy. I like my war heroes who didn't get caught. Right? Just an off, not anything about the actual facts of history like I just laid out, but just that comment for him like that. And then people not paying attention. A lot of people who have not paid attention over the last 30 years, not like us who have paid attention and have seen John McCain, the idiot, sell out, the Manchurian candidate, said, oh, look, he's against veterans. It was a lie then. It's a lie today. But that's the calculated deception that they're going on, because it was an old lie, and they think that it's something they can use because they made up this propaganda. So this is what we're going to see again and again. We're going to see, oh, he's against war veterans. Oh, he's a racist. Oh, he's a misogynist. And then repeat the same again and again. And it'll always be, when you actually finally track it down, some like with the Atlantic, it'll be, okay, oh, a super donor owns the Atlantic. It's completely made up. A couple of deranged Trump haters say that he said that. It didn't happen. They can't be sued or shot. We should bring back duels, because that would take care of a lot of this nonsense right off the bat, right? Or Trump would just go punch out these creeps, who tell these lies, and they get away with it, and they never pay a consequence to it. So this is what we're going to see, and unfortunately, we're going to see people who have not paid attention, who are not paying attention, just like anybody who thinks that John McCain was a war hero, and John McCain was a good guy. No, remember, thumbs down. He was not a good guy. He was a jerk. John, he's always been a jerk.
Even putting aside his military record, just look at every single opportunity that he could have. He took that opportunity to stand in front of the cameras and go against what needed to be done for conservative values. He stood against conservative values. He just did it so he could make himself look better, or get the accolades of try to make himself look like, oh, I'm a middle of the road guy. I'm working with both sides. No, you're not. You're working with yourself. You're working for yourself. That's the message of John McCain. That's always been the message of John McCain. It's himself first, America last. That's what it's been. That's what it would be. Yeah, every chance he could, he put himself before the people. I don't care. People are going to say, no, he voted, the votes were independent votes. No, John, They weren't independent votes, because independent votes would be meaning that he would think his way through and try to figure out how to help everybody. He didn't. He was putting one person ahead of everybody else, John McCain. That guy, that individual, if he could get himself in front of the camera, he knew he'd bring up his own value. He'd make himself look better. He'd make himself look like he was something that he really wasn't, which is a good guy. He really wasn't a good guy. So when he's turned on every president that he could, except for the Democratic presidents. He sided with them too often for us to trust him. Why should we even bother to trust somebody of that caliber? John, listen, I saw him speak back in the 1976 bicentennial for in Philadelphia. I watched him in this, and you listen to him speak, and he sounds so slimy, is the best way I can describe it. He doesn't sound honorable. And that's back in 1976. I mean, I watched the videos for different reasons, but I just was turned off by everything about the man. The man didn't inspire me at all. Back then, he was a congressman, House of Representative congressman. How he moved up, I can't say why. I'm not from Arizona, but he shouldn't have. They promoted the wrong man.
He pretended to be a Reagan conservative. He got reelected his last time because he swore he was going to vote against Obamacare, and his vote is the reason why we have Obamacare still to this day.
Because himself.
Because he came in and voted. So he violated his oath then. So why do we think? Why is anybody who's a big fan of John McCain today still alive, running around going? Why do you think he didn't violate his oath all this time? He's always been a spoiled rich kid, living off his family's past.
John, have you heard his daughter? Talk about it? Have you heard her on The View? Because she's on The View.
Oh, don't send her this video. She'll be flipping.
Yeah. But,
wow. Hey,
you know what?
You get what you deserve in life.
She's just as bad as he was. She badmouths Trump all the time.
Of course.
She doesn't understand him. She doesn't get him. It's just because of what he said about her father. Maybe she should step back and look at it. Maybe I guess I can respect the fact that she loves her father. I can respect the fact that she's defending her father and that she feels she's defending it by attacking Trump. But she, as far as I'm concerned, she's cut from the same cloth, and she's come at this same way he is. If she doesn't like it, I say too bad.
Hey, declassify all those files. Let's find out the truth. Declassify them. Come on.
I'll be glad to say I was
Trump
wrong.
Ought to do.
I'll be glad to say, John, here's the difference between us and them. If we're wrong, we'll be glad to say we're wrong. We'll be glad to promote somebody who is right. But if somebody who's lying and getting caught and hiding behind declassification or classifications, that's just what Democrats do. That's what the Obama administration has done for the last 4 years. They hid behind classifications. It took us 4 years to find out that really Joe Biden, who probably forgets that he did it, unmasked Michael Flynn, which is another case for us to talk about next week, John.
All right,
because we are at the 58-minute mark.
All right, so I guess it's then time for us to go.
It's either that or we extend our show another 15 minutes like we did last week. But we talked about the Call of Duty winner 22 from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Well, I guess we can carry on next week and have a great Labor Day next week, right?
By the way, John, Mob loses every time against the AR-15.
AR-15 versus Mob. AR-15 wins, right?
AR-15 wins. That's right. All right, brother. In that case, let me set the show up to go. Love you. Talk to you later.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
Aye, aye. Admiral Butthead.
So don't mess with me.
I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
I pray for the president all the time.
Ugh, back to the lock with you, Nessie.
I've now been in 57 states.
He's what we designate as the crummy moronic
We
type.
didn't crawl out from under no rocks. We didn't have no tails. We didn't come from monkeys. You atheistic pinko meathead.
Donald Trump no longer has the capacity to break my heart.
I'm not pissed. You've seen me pissed. This is way, way beyond pissed.
Now it's a party!
Don't try to be funny, will you, meathead?